part of that, personal finance has always been a real passion of mine. And over the years, as I've worked with individuals and people, I've tried to blend the tools and the skills that we as accountants use in business to apply to our own personal finance. And that's what's brought me to this point and developed some ideas that I'm going to be sharing with the group tonight. I've taught 4 Elysium Learning Center classes all around this very subject, all around the same framework. So those of you that may have attended some of these before, some of this may be a bit of a repeat, but we're going to go into a little deeper dive on just one of those principles that we talk about. By the end of tonight, you'll have a better understanding that we all have an actual relationship with money, and that relationship is far deeper than just dollars and cents, just the numbers that money represents, but that there is a deep-rooted meaning in our relationship with money. That each of us belongs to a financial unit, or we actually belong to a couple of financial units. And the steps for getting onto the same page with the individuals that you share, that you're part of that financial unit for. Hopefully by the end we're excited, feel empowered and engaged to really take on our personal finances. The framework under which I approach and we approach personal finances is based on this. And like I said, if you've attended any of the other classes that I've presented, this should be a little familiar to you. This internal box, but just as a reminder, this internal box represents those things that we absolutely need in our lives to survive. Those are things like food, shelter, clothing, medical care, transportation. Now, the type of food that we eat, the type of shelter that we have, the type of clothing that we wear, that begins to vary. But each of us needs an essential baseline of these items in order to just survive in this world. But once we get beyond those basic needs, our interests and our desires, our wants, and what we choose to spend our money on becomes really varied and can become, some examples are some people love to spend money on vacations. Some people are saving for education, making charitable donations. All of these things that exist outside of those essential items really do become the things that we choose to spend our money on. The things that bring us the most fulfillment, the most happiness, or just are the priorities that we choose to allocate our own resources. Just kind of take a look at some of these items and begin reflecting on what are the things that I personally like to spend my money on or choose to spend my money on. Because sometimes like isn't even why we're spending our money on that, but what are those items that we do? And all of these have value and can bring us meaning and can bring us purpose. And so the judgment call as to whether one is better than the other, that really is internal to us and internal to our family unit. And we should be able to feel good about going after any of these items that bring us purpose, bring us meaning, as long as we stay true to 4 core principles. And those 4 core principles are what outline this world that we want to exist in. Kind of give us the framework, give us the boundaries by which we can operate. The first principle is the financial unit must be on the same page. And this one is what we're really going to go into tonight, about the financial unit being on the same page. The next one is we have to know what's coming in and what's going out. whether that's a basic on a sheet of paper or a sophisticated budgeting software. We have to know what's coming into our financial unit and what's going out. The third principle is time will either be your best friend or your worst enemy. And we've gone into depth at other times as to the power of interest in allowing us to build wealth, build savings, and that same power of interest when it's used for debt to really weigh us down. And so understanding time is essential to what we're doing. And finally, we have to learn that we have to earn more than we plan to spend, as a foundational principle. That as we begin to decide where we're going to allocate these resources, those resources that we bring in have to be greater than what we're going to send out. Any questions on those four principles before we start digging deeper into the first principle about the financial unit? Hopefully, as I've thought about these and developed them, these should feel really right to people and very foundational in what we do. And this just kind of gives a mapping and a framework to how we can allocate our resources. So let's talk about that financial unit and being on the same page. There is a contest out there that I have never quite understood. And sometimes it happens at family reunions or company picnics, and it's this one. The infamous tug of war, where one group of people get on one side of a rope and another group of people get on the other side of the rope, and if they're lucky, somebody's dug a mud pit right in the middle, and at the same time, both sides just start pulling on that rope. And I have never understood the point to this contest of strength. Two groups of people just pulling on the same rope in opposite directions, and it goes nowhere. And I've just thought, what a waste of human energy that is for individuals to be pulling against each other. And a lot of times, our personal family finances begin to feel a lot like this tug of war, where one of the people in the relationship wants one thing, the other person wants another, and you just start pulling. Or maybe the kids are wanting these things and the parent, and you just start pulling against each other. And you just start wasting that energy. What happens if we take that same energy and refocused it in pulling together? Why anyone would want to pull a bus, this is probably the next closest waste of human energy, but at least they're working together to accomplish a similar purpose, right? Or the rowing, as all 6 or 8 of those individuals start rowing together, how much ground they can cover and how quickly they can cover. A lot of times, as we as a financial unit can begin rowing in the same direction, pulling in the same direction, the sheer amount of ground that we can cover, of things that we can accomplish together, becomes remarkable. And so, let's identify what our financial unit is. What am I talking about when I say a financial unit? How many of you have seen one of these on somebody's car? Yeah? Okay? We actually love to identify what our financial unit is. We put them on our cars. Here's another more creative one. I've seen ones with Disney, Disney characters, aliens. Everyone loves to identify their financial unit, put it on the back, on a bumper sticker of their car, and now start trying to give more character to that. We're a Disney family. We're a sports family. Then people get even more creative. We're a Star Wars family. And then, as our society does, we start getting even more clever. The empire doesn't care about your stick figure family. And start destroying that. Or aliens abducted my stick figure family. So we love to identify our tribes or our financial units. And technically, what is that for our discussion? The financial unit is an individual or group of individuals who utilize the same set of resources with which to survive and thrive. So as you reflect on your own personal, that could be an individual. Okay? If you individually are responsible for all the resources that you bring in and for the resources that you allocate, then you're a financial unit. The question is, can an individual be on both sides of a tug of war? Absolutely. We as individuals think we want one thing, so we start heading that direction, but then perhaps our impulses and our desires pull us in another direction. So as individuals, these principles that we're talking about apply very much to our own individual financial unit. Sometimes that financial unit is a couple. Two individuals who have come together, who perhaps both bring resources, well, definitely both bring different resources. Maybe one's bringing more financial resources into it, the other's putting more time into that financial unit. But the couple are combining their resources and allocating those resources out together. And finally, when other dependents become part of that, and dependents typically drain more of the resources than they contribute financial resources into the financial unit. As you get further and out of this section, the dynamic of what input, what level of say or influence those different individuals have within the financial unit may change. I'll give you a great example. I'm not saying that your other dependents, the people that rely on those funds, should have the same decision-making authority as those that are actually bringing in the resources and responsible for the long-term outcome of that financial family. But they do impact what this financial unit, how they're bringing those resources in, and what they're choosing to spend it. One example is I have a brother who was a college professor up at a community college in Wyoming. And I remember as his two older kids were getting closer and closer to the age where they were supposed to be ready to head off to college, he was beginning to worry about his inability to pay for their college education. Well, if the one thing he did have is any of his kids who attended the college in which he was teaching, they would get free tuition and free books at that school. And so as a financial unit, what was helpful is he let his kids know, look, I can't afford to pay for college elsewhere, but if you choose to come to this college that I teach at, your schooling is free. And so by giving them enough time to understand that if they chose someplace else, he would not be able to assist them the way that he could assist them if they chose to go to the college that he was teaching at. They were able to make a more informed choice as they got closer to their decision as to which college they were going to go. Both of the kids that were approaching that age while he was teaching chose to go to school at the college that he taught at. and have that schooling paid for. And so that's what we're looking to do when we begin to understand who is using our resources, who's contributing to our resources, and what communications do we need to have with them to appropriately plan on that. So now that we've identified who is in our financial unit, who is part of that, what role they play, whether they are contributing resources, whether they're utilizing our resources, we can now begin to focus on the resources themselves. So I want to ask you a question. I'm going to throw up a couple of pictures here, and I want you to tell me what they have in common. That's salt, for anybody who couldn't quite see that. So salt, cows. Anything come to mind as to what these things share in common?
They're edible.
They're edible, okay. Seashells. What do those have in common? Coins.
They're not the chocolate ones.
What's that?
They're not chocolate coins.
They're not chocolate coins. No, I didn't bite into them, but I'm pretty sure they're legit gold coins. Any thoughts? What?
Is it that they're all types of currency at one point in time?
Bingo!
Yes!
Good job.
I feel like I just got the connections.
Very good. At some point in time, every one of these items, at some point, either at some point in history or at some place in this world, were used as currency, were used as a means of exchange. This is the first known paper money. The Chinese used these generations ago. And of course, the infamous Diners Club, the first credit card of its type, right? All of these, throughout our history, in some place in the world, was used as a form of money. And so, what does that tell us about money itself and the value that that money has? Any thoughts on that?
It's a construct, like it's relative to the time and place.
Okay, yeah. And somebody had to assign a value to each of these things and say, I will accept that salt for something that I'm willing to either give to you in exchange for that salt. Or the cows. We can kind of understand the value that a cow had. We can understand the value that salt had. If salt is the way that we preserve our food, then there's a real value there, right? But what about seashells? That one seems a little odd. But at some point, some group used these seashells as that means of exchange. And of course, we've evolved, and it asks that question, what really is money? Again, talking about the Chinese 1,000 years ago began to issue these kinds of documents to say, okay, I'm going to put a stamp on this. You, as a trader, can take this document and go 1,000 miles away and present it to people that know me in that country, and they'll say, you're good for this. And that evolved into banknotes. This one was written on the first bank of Westchester, a $5 bill. So banks used to issue their own notes, and that you could present that at other banks or at other forms of currency. That currency developed into, like I said, the Diners Club. That was the first credit card of its type that basically said, you present this at a restaurant that will accept this and will pay that restaurant on your behalf, and then you pay us. I mean, that was a wild concept at some point. That was an innovative idea. That evolved into multiple credit cards from all over. And that has evolved into bits of data, right? Where we just take our phones. How many of you use your phones? I'm still in the dark ages where I use this. How many of you have evolved to where you just use your phone, right? Okay? We've taken money and it's gone from being cows or salt or gold, being backed by that, to all the way to it's just data, right? It's just zeros and ones. And our entire world economy is based on these zeros and these combinations of zeros and ones. And yet, we all seem to be wearing clothes, we all seem to be eating food, we all seem to be exchanging with one another this something of value. So what is money? What is it? Well, economists have spent their entire careers defining that, and I'm sure most economists would have a great argument for this, but for our sakes and for our purposes, I'm going to boil it down to money is the means of exchange which allows us to obtain goods, services, or experiences that are important to us. Can we all settle in on this definition? Again, most economists would probably add 10 layers to it, but for our discussion, this is what money is. It's that means of exchange that we as a society have chosen to acquire goods, services, or experiences that are important to us. And so, as you think about money and think about the what we choose to use it, another exercise that is healthy for all of us to go through, and is healthy for us to go through with those individuals that are part of our financial unit, is to begin to understand what is it about money that drives us. And one of these exercises is think about what's coming to your mind as these pictures, and we went through this exercise last time, so some of you might have already had this experience, but I genuinely want to hear some of your thoughts. What comes through your mind when you see that? Alan? When you see that house, what comes to your mind?
Old.
What's that?
Old.
Old. Okay. Chanley, what comes to your mind with that house?
The goal, to own real estate.
Your goal is to and that meets that goal for you.
Yes.
Absolutely.
At one
right?
point, yeah.
Okay. Keith, what goes through your mind?
Remodel.
A lot of work, right? Okay. How about this one? Now what goes through your mind? Jenna?
Aspire to have.
Aspire to have? Okay. David?
It just looks like a cookie cutter home.
Cookie cutter home? Okay. All right. Any other thoughts, Brady?
They both resemble more money to me.
Okay. In what way?
They're assets to you invested that automatically make you more money.
Okay. Do you see those as assets? Okay. What about this one? I can see that one. What comes to mind there? Andrew?
Take it if I had to.
Take it if you had to.
But it's not a great asset.
Not one. Why do you see that as not a great asset?
They're not built up.
Okay. That's a mobile home. That's more. You'd see that as more of a shelter, right? Okay.
Temporary shelter.
Temporary. Okay. What about this one? Comes to mind there, Janessa? Fancy. Okay.
Yard work.
Yard work. Isn't it interesting? All of these serve the same function, right? They provide shelter for either us or for somebody else. But isn't it interesting how each one of those elicited very different responses within us? Right? Let's play this game again. with something else. How about this? What does that elicit? Somebody throw something out. Speeding tickets.
There you go.
Okay. Okay.
Fun.
Well, only if you get caught. Okay. Fun. Who said fun?
Fun.
Fun. Okay.
Envy.
Envy. Interesting. Okay. As you see that racing down, those sense of, ooh, I'd sure love to be driving that. Right? How about that one? What does that elicit in you?
Sadness.
Okay. Why is that?
Wow. Sad car.
What's that?
Seems sad.
Seems sad. Okay.
It's gray. It's like
You're not
probably
following
has a
this, you're not
frown.
following this up at the parking lot.
If we could see the front of it, it'd just be a big old frown.
It's very utilitarian, isn't it?
That's actually Matt's car.
That's freedom.
Sure.
Freedom. Why do you say freedom?
Oh, because it's a function to get you anywhere you want to go in life.
Okay. You're going from A to B.
Both of those places go to the same place.
Okay. They do. They take you to the same place. How about that one? What does that elicit in you? I saw a cringe there. Chandler, what did that elicit in you?
A little bit of a nightmare. I don't want to own a minivan.
You don't want to
I'll be a
own
suburban, a
Family
SUV mom.
vacations for Chandler.
Family vacations.
Yeah.
Soccer.
Janessa, could I get you to go upstairs and get me in Arizona? Do you see the? You know which ones I'm talking about? Okay, thank you. I'll pay for it later. Okay. So, how about this one? Oh, that one.
Classy.
Classy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You can picture yourself just tooling down a beautiful country road on a Sunday afternoon, just really riding that. Okay. How about this one?
It's awesome.
That one you feel awesome about?
I think, yeah, is that one of those old Hondas?
That's an
CR-V.
old Honda Civic
Yeah,
hatchback.
those are cool.
That's going back.
The mufflers pull off of those really easily, just so you know.
So each one of us was feeling something very different for every one of these different vehicles. Right? They mean something different for us. Maybe this one that's sad to David, to me, is perfect. Because it gets me from A to B, and that's all I needed to do. Thank you, and I apologize for this, everybody.
In my defense, you showed a Ferrari first.
That is very well said. Please forgive me as I take a couple of sips here. But each one of these represents something different. This is perfectly okay if that is something that when you see that, it's like, yes, I want that. That's something I want. If we're applying those 4 principles that we talked about. That big fancy house that we saw, perfectly great to aspire to something like that as we apply those 4 foundational principles. If this is what serves us, if we don't find great joy in the precision of a vehicle, I'm not a vehicle guy. I'm not a car guy. I know that makes me a weirdo to many.
Just makes you
Right?
sad.
It makes me sad. But maybe it's that classic car. And as we begin to understand what do these various things elicit inside of us, I know there's a lot of people who just feel better about themselves when they're driving a really nice car. That's not a bad thing about them. It's not necessarily a good thing about it, but for them, if that's what makes them feel good, and they're obtaining that by applying those 4 foundational principles, been okay. And so, let's do this one more time. We're having fun with this? Let's do this one more time. Can you wake up the computer again?
There you go.
Okay. Let's do it on food. What does that elicit in you? Alan?
Abundance.
Abundance. Interesting. That says to you a full kitchen, right? How about that one? What does that elicit? Andrew?
Not real.
Not real?
Those kids are way too happy to have not
That-
chicken nuggets or hot dogs.
That's not the experience you have at your household. Is that what I'm hearing from you? Okay. How about this one? Anybody?
Special occasion.
Special occasion? Well, that one.
Small portions.
What's that?
Oh, I was like, the fancy one reminds me of small portions.
Small portions, okay? Paying a lot for a little, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What about the new one? Up here.
Connection.
Okay. Isn't that interesting that food, this most basic thing, can be prepared, served, eaten with very different groups of people to elicit very different feelings, very different functions. Do you think these people are there purely just, this is where we want to get ourselves full tonight? No. They're choosing to use food as an opportunity to get together with hopefully friends, maybe that they haven't seen in a while, or maybe that they truly enjoy. Clearly there's a different objective with this meal, right? It's the time that this family is choosing to reconnect as a family. Food has a powerful way of influencing our lives. And it's not just a matter of, well, how are we going to, how we choose to spend our money on food has very different impacts on us. Okay? So, as we begin to realize that all of those experiences are something that we want to do, we begin to realize that those within our financial unit respond to those different things very differently in our lives. So we're going to kind of play a bit of a game as we do this. What's that? Okay, yeah. I should begin. Brady, would you mind texting Amy and letting her know that Matt's taking care of his Matt's drinking my drink to take care of himself? Thank you. So the first part of bringing our financial unit together is beginning to understand that different ways that we spend our money, different ways that we allocate our resources can be very different within that financial unit. That fancy car that brings us great joy may be something that our spouse has no interest in. And so when I go to buy that car and my spouse is having an absolute meltdown as to why that's the thing I'm choosing to spend our money on, we've got to have a deeper conversation. We've got to begin to understand that maybe that reflects something very different for them. And so as we begin to understand why the The first step, the foundational step in us being able to be on the same page as a financial unit is to begin to understand what it is that money means to me as an individual, what money means to the partner that I have come together with, whether that's my spouse, whether that's the person I'm choosing to live with at the time. What does money mean to that individual? And before we can really understand that point, we've got to begin to ask a couple of questions. And so we're going to do this one in reverse. We're going to do number 2 first. What is your earliest memory of money, of your interaction with money? We need to begin to understand who that individual, what the relationship that the other person that we're the part of the financial, what is their relationship with money, and what they need to begin to understand what our relationship with money is. And one of the best kind of starters to begin this conversation with that individual, or to begin to understand it for ourselves, is what is our earliest memory of our interaction with money? I tell the story. My first memory of money and my interaction with that money is I'm outside playing as a 6-year-old. And I'm playing, and I hear that ubiquitous ice cream truck music start playing. And it's far enough away that I know I've got a couple of minutes before, or a long time before it's where I have to say, hey, I'm here, and I realize I want ice cream. I want what's on that truck. I want what that noise is bringing my direction. I don't have any money. I don't have a piggy bank. But guess where there is money? In my mom and dad's yellow Vanagon, they put all their loose coins in the old cigarette tray. And so I am frantically scrambling to the Vanagon. This door's locked. This door's locked. Oh good, the driver's door is unlocked. And I crawl into that car. I pilfer through that coin tray, and I secured myself enough money that I could get myself an ice cream from the ice cream man. I didn't even think that I was stealing that money. It was the van money. That's available to everybody, right? And I can just remember the sense of panic that I had in trying to gather those coins up fast enough that I could actually catch that ice cream man before they passed me by. I don't know what that says about me, but I know that's my first interaction with money. Start thinking about and writing down, what is your first memory of your first interaction with money? What are some of your other memories of your early on interaction with money? What we begin to understand is that those memories quickly begin to tell our story about what relationship we have with money. The next question, and this one is really good as you begin to explore this. Growing up, what was your family's narrative regarding money? Was every penny fought over? Was there an abundance mindset in the home? Was it a scarcity mindset? Did we hesitate to ever ask our parents for a single dollar because we knew what that was going to elicit? Did we learn that, hey, you want something? You go get it. You go do it. Did our parents kind to teach us, either through example or explicitly, just to be careless with money. And whatever comes, comes. Did we see our parents suffering for poor financial decisions? Did we suffer because of our parents' financial decisions? What impact has that had on how we have chosen to spend, to earn and to spend our money as we become adults? And just as we have an entire lifetime coming up to when we bring that to our new financial unit, so does our spouse, so does the other person that we are coming together with to spend, to choose to allocate resources. How are we going to use our growing up experiences to either intentionally teach those other dependents that will be part of us, our financial unit, about money, or unintentionally teach? Because one way or the other, we're sending messages to those people that rely on us as to what money is. Finally, answer this question, and there's a little bit of a typo, but money allows me to do what? Money allows me to blank. And I would encourage every one of you, if you want, to take this paper home and fill this out. Invite your significant other to fill this out, to answer those 3 questions. If you are an individual alone in the financial unit, answer these questions, step away for a week, and then come back to them. If you are part of a couple, you answer these questions on your own, have your spouse answer those questions, swap those. Read them, share them with each other, step away for a week, then come back and say, what did you find interesting about that? What insight maybe could you have learned about me and how I choose to spend money from what I shared about those memories, about what growing up, about what I think money allows me to do? That's one exercise that you can go through as you begin to try to get on the same page as a financial unit. The next exercise is this first step, is list all the ways that you like to spend money or that you dream of spending money. And do this by yourself. Don't do it with your significant other. Invite them to do the same thing. Write all the things that they like to spend money on, that you, and then, after you've written them down, just brainstorm them out, go back through and start ranking them. That, you know what, the thing that I really love, that the thing that I would do above all else is this one. For my wife right now, if we have additional resources, she wants to put it into the backyard. Some of you know we have a 5-year plan as to the different things that we are doing in our backyard. Anytime we have additional resources, that's where she wants to spend the money. Anytime we have additional resources, I want to be traveling. That's kind of where I like to spend our excess resources. You can believe there's we both want the other thing. She likes to travel. I like the nice things that are coming in our backyard. We just have prioritized those differently. And so we do a dance where one gets that priority and then the other gets it. If one gets out of balance, we've learned to have better communication as to how those kind of get in balance. But we begin to see what are those priorities that the other one appreciates. And we can begin to learn how to prioritize because unless and until we can get on the same page as a financial unit, those other 3 principles are are very difficult to begin to apply because we're just tugging against each other. We're kind of, we start using the resources over here, and this person starts using the other resources over here, and we're never able to really get on that same page. And so as we wrap up, as we try to come together, start using some of these tools to begin to first understand what this relationship with money is for ourselves and for our partners. And as we begin to fully appreciate what our relationship to money is, what it helps us feel good about, what we can, and what it helps ourselves, we can begin to bring those resources together. We can't even start on the numbers. We can't even start on the ones and the zeros until we fully appreciate our own relationship with money and our spouses or our partner's relationship with money, and then begin to understand that our kids have that relationship. So it's important to understand it's not a contest. If this isn't, I'm going to win in this conversation, I'm going to get that car no matter what. If you walk away getting that brand new car and your wife or your spouse not feeling like you're on the same page, that's not a win. So it's not a contest. It's a combining. It's an understanding. Remove all the noise when you're having these conversations. Money and our relationship to money is something that is deeply personal. And if you truly want to begin to understand what your significant other, what you as an individual, you've got to take time to remove all the noise and deeply reflect and deeply listen and understand. As you're having these conversations, these money conversations, first seek to understand. Again, it's not about trying to prove that you're right, that your way of spending the money is right. It's understanding what you as an individual genuinely want from money and what your partner wants from money. And finally, empathize. Try to put yourself in their shoes. Why does it drive them crazy every time you come home with a new tool? Why does it drive them crazy? Or what insecurity does it create if X, Y, or Z is happening with the money? As we begin to develop these soft skills, we can move into what would be the hard skills as far as the foundational, kind of that next step of understanding where the money's coming in from and where it's going out to. But until we can establish this foundation, those other steps are extremely difficult to get beyond. So as a reminder, these are the 4 core principles, and we focus primarily on, solely on this financial unit must be on the same page. And as we get that foundation, as we begin to understand that relationship that we have with money, we can then move on to know what's coming in and what's going out. We'll address that one in a future class. If any of you are interested, then time becomes your best friend or your worst enemy through the power of interest. And then finally, learning to earn more than what we plan to spend. Any questions? Any thoughts? Again, we here at Elysium are anxious and excited to work with anybody and to help people learn and grow to become and live their best lives. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. We can sit down one-on-one and go more specific into your specific circumstances and get more into some of these other principles. There are other trained individuals here that would love to jump in and help with all of those things. So keep in touch, and thank you for coming out tonight.